He's always been the all-American type kid. He's always been, even bordering on being a little naive about the world. Uh, Always thinking the best of people, always thinking the best of situations in life. One of the first times I had to scold him was he was making long distance calls to the Dallas Cowboys Tony Dorsett. He had such a idolization of Tony Dorsett that he would call. I didn't even know how he found his number out because Sean was only about 8 years old then. But this is the way Sean was. He would take everything uh, uh, to the natural end, to the top, over the top. He was always an over the top person. His bedroom, his room where we lived. His mother became, well, I can transcend to this part of it as he got to be a young teenager, about 12 years old. He was living with his mother. His mother and I weren't together, and I had remarried. And subsequently to me being remarried, I had problems, and I was not with my wife. And as the ironics of life was, at the exact same time, Sean's mother became mentally ill, and she had to be placed in a place. So I'm saying all this to fill in the background on the trauma and the drama that he was going through as a young kid. Uh, but the ironics of it is that I was financially successful, so I took him from literally a ghetto situation, if I can use that term. We were clean, but we were poor. And his mother was ill, and she had to be hospitalized. And I was available, if you will, to use a trite expression. Should have been there no matter what, but I was available. And I was living in a very fancy high-rise penthouse apartment building. And the change from being in that environment to being in this environment with me, I think literally changed his life. I think it literally made him feel as though he could achieve something. He began to emulate his father. He began to see the kind of lifestyle his father had, and I think he began to see a whole different kind of life, a whole different kind of world than what he was exposed to and what he was under and subject to over there with his mom. And even after his mom got better and came home, I kept him with me until he became grown, even. I saw the impact that in my own selfishness, I didn't even aware of me not being there was having a negative effect. My own selfishness, self-centeredness, wanting to get along in my own world. But then after I realized how much we bonded and how much it meant to me and how much it meant to him more than even to me, that we were together, that he had a dad and we had a life together. And it was just two guys in a high-rise apartment living in luxury. He couldn't believe it. I remember the expression when he first saw it, when he came there. He said, "I feel like I've died, Dad, and gone to heaven." And I guess you could almost say out of that is the rest is history, because he's done some things on his own like all young people do against my advice, and he's learned his lessons from it in terms of marriage and divorce and et cetera and et cetera. But he's always had that winning smile. He's always had that winning smile no matter who he was with, where he was working, what he was under and subject to. He would give you that winning smile, and if you were angry with him, it would just negate it. It would just negate it. I'm very proud of something that may sound trite and ignorant, but I'm very proud of the fact that I never laid a hand on him. Never laid a hand on him in my life. I think that the exposure to me and me being, if you will, self-employed, a businessman, if you will. There was a time when I worked as a school teacher for 5 years. Then after that, before that, I worked as a recreation in the city of Philadelphia for 5 years and worked my way up to being a supervisor of a center. And the only reason I mention that in terms of Sean is that was a period when he was with his mother that he did come around to the center and exposed to activities like basketball. Heck of a basketball player, 6'1" and could dunk. And heck of an athlete. He was a licensed lifeguard for the city of Philadelphia, where he met his first wife, his first love, which I tease him all the time by saying to him that, Sean, you don't marry the first girl you fall in love with. You got to have a practical side to it too. Well, naturally, being a youngster, he went on and married her, and they had some lovely children, but it didn't work out. But that's history now. They're friends. That's the most important thing. But getting back to what I was saying is that I think him seeing me being aggressive, always trying to say I'm not satisfied with being a school teacher. Not to knock the profession, it's great, but and anyone else ordinarily from his world would have thought that was the end of the world, from where he was coming from, the poverty he came from. But then he saw me saying, no, that's not enough. There's more to be done here. I want to be a real estate man. Why I picked real estate is only because during the summertime, no, during, it was the one job that was a night job, where you showed houses during the evening. So when I got out of school as a teacher at 3 o'clock, I had enough time left to do another job. Whereas if I had another day, so it fell into place, if you will. And he was exposed to that, and he saw that, and I think that all these things kind of like permeated his personality to the point where he wanted to be more. He wanted to prove something to me. I feel that. I do feel strongly that he wanted to prove something to me, that he can be that. But it's always a case of the parent trying to say to him, but there's so many variables out there in life that you cannot control, that don't feel defeated. I mean, if you don't get to be that, be proud of whatever you do. And the one good thing about him being around me and exposed to me is, I think, if I may not grab all these accolades, because I have negatives, and one of my biggest negatives is my Achilles heel, if you will, is I have a temper. I have a short fuse, and he's seen it, and I think that he has gotten a short fuse too. The good side of that is he's strong enough to speak up for himself instead of getting walked over or talked over. It's one of the attributes about Sean that I like about him. But I remember that he used to work. I used to help him get a job with the parking authority in the city of Philadelphia, out there in cold, freezing rain. He never complained about that. The only thing he complained about was he wasn't making enough money. But he never complained about the conditions or the dealing with the public and their animosity every time you get a ticket or something like that. He was even going, always even tempered in that regard. If I may express some things that I don't want to cause any disagreement about, but the parking authority was taken over by the Republican Party in Philadelphia. It was a deal made by Mr. Rendell, the governor, for whatever reasons that they had a trade-off. And what happened politically in Philadelphia is that they were trying to weed out all the people who were in the parking authority who got their jobs through Democratic influence. And the slightest little thing that you would do, they would try to get you out, make you resign, fire you, anything they could so they can create space. And they did precisely that with Sean. But the good thing out of it is he's come along to do something 10 times even better. And he landed on his feet. The thing that happened though was they did something, and he got in a meeting, in a hearing, across front of the table, appeal, Civil Service Commission, and the Human Relations Commission of Pennsylvania, and they started saying, he jumped up and said, that's a lie, and that's where his temper got him in trouble in that regard, as if to name a point. But it all worked out. The thing is like in a lot of modern today's society we live in, we put so much stock in things like titles, professor, doctor, lawyer, and etc. That we become so middle class, so bourgeois, if I can use that old cliche, that when Sean first met his second wife, she was from what the Latinos affectionately referred to as the barrio. The blacks referred to as the hood, the neighborhood. Struggling, middle class, maybe even blue collar type world. And I'm being very candid about this, I hope you don't mind. And Sean met the girl, and he liked the girl, and she liked him very, very much, and felt as though Sean was a step up out of the barrio. And that's fine for a lady. I mean, I'm not saying she didn't love him. Sure, she loved him. But I think that there's a certain amount of social class involved with all of us. We all want to think we're marrying up as opposed to marrying down. Idealistically, we marry together for love. but it always doesn't work out that way. And the most clinical way of putting it is that subject to that, his wife went on and got a college degree. Sean has always been a businessman type, a working man, hard kind of guy. Even though I sent him to Easton College and he got a couple of years of college in, he did not graduate. But the long and short of it was, I think the lady simply feels as though she's out. And only time will tell whether she's correct or not. But it's unfortunate because the people feel that way materialistically and idealistically. I think she just simply feels as though she is now in the upper crusty level of whatever, and Sean doesn't fit the bill. If I can be that candid about it. My advice to him my advice to any man, not only him, is no matter how much you love a lady, if a lady thinks she's better than you or doesn't want you, you must say, well, I don't want her to. You cannot hang on or try to keep it together or anything like that. I mean, you lose your own dignity, your own self-respect as a man, especially from a male perspective in this world. You must have that kind of body language, that kind of carriage, that kind of demeanor, if you're going to be respected not only by your woman, but your peers. Nobody likes a mouse, no matter what, how much money he got, how good he look, or whatever. And that's what I try to instill in Sean. Is no matter how much you love, and he loves her very much. And he loves his children very, very, very much. But I tell him he cannot use his children as an excuse to try to keep something together with someone who doesn't think he's good enough anymore. I want him to have a much more, he doesn't reveal to me enough spirituality. I'd like it's a weakness, like it's not being cool, you know, and I'm always talking about Jesus. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Allah or Jehovah. I don't care what it is or who it is, but a man cannot be a whole man and be a good father and have a set of principles and be able to withstand the hard times in life that are going to come to everybody if he doesn't have a good, strong spiritual base. And that is the one thing I'm still waiting for him to come with. Don't have to go to church every Sunday. I'm not talking about that. I used to go to church every Sunday. I don't go every Sunday anymore, but it doesn't come a day when I don't thank him. And I don't know whether he does that or not, and that's the only thing that I'm hoping for to complete the picture. That's the way I would like to end it.